Well, hey, everybody, welcome to another exciting, thrilling episode of the Military Wire, where today we're going to be venturing into the gray zone with none other than former U.S. Army Special Forces Lieutenant Colonel Brad Taylor, one of my favorite guests that I have on the show. I think, Brad, I have you back. I got to believe it's probably
Yeah.
once a year. Every time you come out with a new book, I have you back. And I just got to tell you guys that Brad is not just an author, he's like this master of espionage novels that combine like real life events into his bringing in his real life experience. So these novels that he creates are very, very rich. I love the Pike series. That's what we're going to be diving into. So what's interesting about this book right here, which is coming out here in April, Into the Gray Zone, is Brad takes us on this journey. It's like this intricate dance of geopolitical stuff that's going on where the stakes are high, and he mentions something that has been in the news a lot this year, which is, according to our president, raw earth materials, but what is really known as rare earth materials. And he kind of takes us on this journey. So very excited. If you guys have not picked up this book, this almost seems like a behind the scenes of what is going on today, like today. And every time Brad writes a novel, I look at him and say, Brad, are you giving us the inside scoop? So, Brad, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's good to be back.
Yeah, I love this. So, I just want to start off with a key question is how did you know to write this book when this is so relevant today?
I didn't. The book actually came out from a little side note. The Because India doesn't seem like a place you'd write a book about. But about a year ago, usually, I mean, I'm constantly voraciously keeping up with current events, and a lot of the stuff doesn't make the American news, and something will pick my interest. Well, there was a guy in Canada that was killed in drive-by shooting, just local murder. And then a month later, the Canadian government came out and said this guy was a uh, uh, Sikh dissident living in Canada, and the government of India killed him. The research and analysis wing, their version of the CIA, had come to Canada and killed him. And I was like, what? That is crazy. Why would they do? I mean, you hear, sure, Vladimir Putin will do that. Iran's running
Yeah.
around whacking people, but India? And so I started doing research on it. And then about 2 months after that happened, our own FBI arrested an Indian national in America saying this guy was going to kill a Sikh inside America. And oh, by the way, the government of India is behind this. And I was
No.
like, holy moly, something's going on here. And
Yeah.
so I started doing a deep dive research on it. And it turns out that the Sikhs want their own country inside India. And way back when, like in the 80s and early 90s, they were India's Al Qaeda. They were blowing things up. They actually blew up a plane in Canada. The largest diaspora of Sikhs are in Canada outside of India. So they blew a plane full of people up. They were blowing all kinds of stuff up in India, and it was a huge insurgency. And Indira Gandhi, the prime minister at the time, conducted a military operation on their main religious site, and it was this huge bloodbath. They ended up killing like 400 people. A lot of tension develops out of that. Well, months later after that, the Sikhs are real militants. They're in the military and things like that. Her bodyguards were all Sikhs, and they turned around and killed her. Her own bodyguards did. So
Wow.
that was then. And that's the history behind it, but it's obviously still going on today because the current government of India is running around killing people. So
Wow.
that's what started the storyline.
That is so good. Well, and now that you described it, I can totally see that storyline in this book, which is so crazy. I mean, the characters have changed a little bit, but this so it in I want to shift in the shadows of espionage, which you seem to be an expert in to some degree, but in the shadows of espionage, how do rare earth elements fuel the fire of global politics?
Yeah, well, so that came about because once I started doing the research on India, then I got to have some kind of plot line. I kind of went away from the straight Sikh thing, and I've been looking at this for a while, actually. So rare earth elements are something we use in everything. We're using it right now for any modern technology. If it has a screen, it's got rare earth elements in it. EV
Yeah.
cars, rare earth elements. Cell phones, rare earth elements. So anything that consumer-wise that we use on a daily basis has rare earth elements. We'll translate that into the military hypersonic missiles, rare earth elements. The
Yeah.
$400,000 F-35 helmet everybody brags about, you might as well call that the rare earth element helmet. And we do not make our
Wow.
own, we don't mine our own rare earth elements. China does, and China has a 80% monopoly on rare earth element mining and refinement, which is, if they cut the flow off of that, it would severely hamper our national security. And they've threatened to do it in the past. Japan had a fight with them over an island, and as part of the fighting, China just says, we're not giving you rare earth elements. And we saw that and went, holy moly, if they did that to us, we'd be in trouble. We had a rare earth element mine. The problem with rare earth elements is not so much that they're actually that rare. You can kind of find them all over the place, but you can't find them in enough of a concentration to mine. So
Mm.
when you do the mining, it is really, really dirty. And the reason our mine closed was we just couldn't, the miners couldn't make a profit with all of the, to make sure the thing was safe for the environment. China, of course, doesn't care about that. So they'll just go ripping through all that and then sell it to us. Well, while I was over doing research in India, they discovered a huge deposit of rare earth elements in India and lithium in India. And I thought, okay, that's a book. India's a democracy. We want to break the monopoly of China. We're going to invest in that mine covertly without them knowing that, without China knowing that we're propping this up. And then we're going to break the tie of the monopoly. We'll get our rare earth elements from India. I mean, you hear the administration right now talking about rare earth elements in Ukraine. We'll get them out of there.
Yeah.
And of course, China doesn't want that to happen. So, fictionally in the book, they're going to try to stop that rare earth element.
Wow. So I'm kind of going off script on this, but if in fact India does, I mean, we have a partnership with India, right? I mean, we've got a
Yeah.
decent relationship with those guys. So why have we, are we cultivating that?
Oh, I'm sure we are. Yeah, because they found the reservoirs up in the upper part of the country, and everybody knows how much those things are worth, and they're definitely going to mine it. But once again, it is really, really expensive to do. So while I'm sure India could do it on their own, in my fictional part of the book, we said, hey, we'll bankroll this thing. Just don't tell anybody we're doing it, because as
Yeah.
soon as China finds out that America's bankrolling a mine, they're going to do cheetah flips to stop it. So
Yeah.
in the novel, they're doing it covertly, saying, "We'll do it. You guys mine it, and it'll just be an Indian consortium that's doing this." China just wants to stop the mine. Period. In the book, they're like, "We're going to get rid of that. We want our
Yeah.
monopoly. We want to keep our monopoly."
Yeah. Yeah. The book is so good. I mean, there was so many questions I was writing, underlining in the book, like things that I want to pull out. But so I think this is kind of a softball question, but I'm just going to ask you, can the line between ally and adversary blur in the covert world of modern espionage?
Yeah. Well, it's not even in the covert world. The line is consistently blurred. The Arabs have a famous saying: "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." And we have actually done that overtly. When
Yeah.
ISIS was running amok, they took over Mosul, took over most of Syria, lopping off heads, burning pilots, and everything. They're Sunni, and they were killing all the Shia inside Iraq, and Iraq is a predominantly Shia country. We were not going back to Iraq. We said, okay, sorry about that. You guys are going to have to handle this. They turned to Iran. Iran built the PMF, the Popular Mobilization Forces, that started fighting ISIS. Well, it got so bad that Iraq then asked us, could you please come back in and help us? So while we're in Iraq fighting ISIS, so is Iran. And we kind of looked at Iran and said, don't shoot at us, and we won't shoot at you. You go get ISIS on your end, we'll get ISIS on our end. I mean, that was a good example of that.
How did, I mean, there's so much. I'm just going to say into the gray zone. One of the things you, you set it up so well because raw, and again, what does raw stand for? It's like the
Research and analysis wing. They're kind
research.
of unique. They're a unique organization. So it's our, MI6 in Britain, CIA for us.
Yeah.
They both operate under the Parliament or the Congress. Congress has United States Code, Title 50 United States Code delineates everything the CIA can and cannot do. And some of it's pretty granular. Like, for instance, people don't know this. Have you ever seen a movie where some CIA guy is acting as a journalist? That's illegal by United States Code. It specifically says you will never be a journalist accredited with the United States and do any kind of missions. So it
Yeah.
tells us how to do that stuff. Research and analysis wing, when they formed up, they work solely for the prime minister. There's no oversight. Prime minister can say do A, B, C, and D, and they'll do it.
No kidding. Wow. Well, you set that up so well in the book because I wasn't sure, you know, I, the character that you have in there that works for Raw. I wasn't sure which side she was on for a while.
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. I don't want this other guy to go through heartbreak on this. I mean, Brad, you're so good at setting up the characters, and I think the Pike series, if people aren't familiar with the Pike Logan novel series, it's so good. I mean, this guy I've fallen in love with. I think I even asked. Well, now it's going to sound weird when I say this. I even asked you if you were Pike Logan.
Oh
So
yeah,
for my audience, I've not fallen in love with Brad Taylor, but the character is so rich, and I just want to commend you on that. I mean, so very
thank you.
rich. Um, you bring in the emotional aspects of those who serve in combat. Some of the I'm going to say dichotomy that probably goes
Yeah,
on. Um, and the demons that got to be either tamped down or let loose, and you bring
yeah.
that in this character, so it's so very well done. You talked about Sikh sovereignty, and this is interesting because I don't know how much of our audience is really familiar with what goes on in India, but how does that whole Sikh sovereignty really impact the nationalism or this quest for nationalism that's going on, or this identity that's going on with the Sikhs?
Yeah, well, they have and I've done a lot of research on it. I mean, they have a fairly good argument. They've been marginalized for a long time, and but so have the Muslims have been marginalized. Hindus a major thing in India, especially with Modi taking over. He's really gone on a Hindu push. But their argument is, if you're Muslim, you got plenty of places to go. You can be marginalized in India, but you can move to Pakistan. You can move to Saudi Arabia. There's plenty of places you can go as a Muslim. There are
Yeah.
zero places you can go as a Sikh. We need a homeland. There is no place that is a Sikh homeland. It's kind of what their argument is.
Interesting. So is this the same argument that Israel and Palestine are having? Is this kind of the whole
Well,
similar?
it is in the sense, I mean, it's different for Israel and Palestine's been going on. There is a little bit more of the United Nations type, this came in and Israel formed, and we used to be here in the biblical times, and now we're back. And,
Yeah,
the Israel side would say that Palestinians were never, owners of this land. They just moved here just like everybody else. Palestinians, on the other hand, would say just the opposite. No, wait a minute, we were here and you moved in.
yeah,
So, but the
yeah,
Sikhs have been, in India since formation. They've been there forever, and they've never had their own homeland.
yeah. I mean, this is so interesting to me because the character development here and the storyline that you have in the book is so rich when it comes to that. Like I almost thought I was reading a little bit of a history book on that, or really. So the setup is good for me, not understanding that, boy, there's this division. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm probably like every common American out there.
Well, it's same as me. I mean,
Yeah,
what sparked the interest was the government of India tried to assassinate who?
you're
I
right.
mean, that's what sparked the whole thing.
That's so crazy. So where do we draw this line? In the gray zone. There's a couple things I want you to explain. Number one, what is the gray zone? Because I think the audience needs to know what that means, like from
Sure.
your perspective. And what is the line of the gray zone and survival in international politics? Like how do those two play?
Yeah, so the gray zone, it basically really it's been around forever, but it's basically the line between outright war and total peace. In between there is a gray zone of conflict, and it could be economic, could be military, could be covert, and it really came into play after the development of nuclear weapons. It just came too cost prohibitive to go to war. So in order to get our uh, state goals out, you start operating in this gray zone. And you can see it right
Mm,
now, especially after Desert Storm. When we went through Desert Storm and took out Saddam Hussein, I mean, one thing every country on earth took away was you're not standing toe to toe with the United States. Don't go to war with the United States because you cannot win. And
mm,
so they started operating in the gray zone. And it can go on the economic side that China has what they call the Belt and Road Initiative, where they're spreading their economic dominance all over Africa. They'll give you a street, it's really a loan shark deal. We'll invest in that port and you pay us money. When you can't pay the money back, we take the port. We'll invest in this railroad, and if you can't pay the money back, we'll take the railroad. We'll take your diamonds, that kind of thing. And it
that's
works if you see on the sharp end of the spear, like in Crimea in 2014, when little green men came up from Putin. It's a national uprising, and it wasn't. It was a bunch of soldiers from the Soviet Union going in, but he had plausible deniability to say, "Hey, this is these people doing this on their own." He's operating in the gray zone. When India is assassinating Sikhs in Canada,
yeah.
they successfully killed him, but the story got out. That's in the gray zone. I'm going to stop this problem by attacking him covertly. And so it's going on all the time. And, Iran's the master at it. Everything they do through proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, that kind of stuff, they can direct them to do something. And they say, hey, that's not me. That's them.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
operating in the gray zone.
Yeah. So is that the new methodology of war today, quote unquote war today? Like we're not gonna do mass destruction. We're gonna do it's almost like a, tip of the spear, laser focused effort. Is that
Yeah, I'd say it's the new. I wouldn't say it's necessarily new. I mean,
yeah.
Vietnam itself was a high intensity element of the gray zone. It's us fighting, Russia inside Vietnam.
Yeah.
So that it's been around for a while, but yeah, it's definitely that's the way of the world right now.
Yeah, I think Secretary of Defense Hegseth, I think, just came out and said, clearly we don't want to go to war with China, but they are operating here in the United States, which I
Yeah,
guess would be the gray zone.
yeah,
It's
yeah. They've
okay.
got police departments in the United States, clandestine police departments to quash the diaspora. All that's gray zone stuff. When Putin
Wow.
puts plutonium in somebody's underwear to kill him, he's doing it. He's wants to do it plausible deniability. Say, it wasn't me, but then that guy's dead.
Yeah, yeah. This is so interesting. I I will just say that when I picked up this book, and because the president had just come out and talked about, I mean, he said raw earth, and I guess it's rare earth
Yeah.
minerals. I was like, how do you do this, Brad? And you kind of explain that, but your timing seems to be perfect. So you don't have any insider information on any of this, right? I mean, you're just kind of
No,
coming out.
it's well, the insider information is actually out there. You just people don't. It doesn't really make the news. I mean, I've been reading about rare earth elements for a while with China, and we've been beating the bells, beating the drum a little bit. When
Yeah.
we had one mine out here, and they said, "Hey, we're going to close. We can't. We're not making a profit here." They turned to the government, said, "If you give us some help here, we'll continue doing this mine, but right now it's not profitable." And our government said, "No, we're not going to do it." Well, now that was proven to be a bad decision. We're looking at China going, they've got 80% of rare earth elements. That's a national security threat. And the entire book of the gray zone there, this whole fighting over a mine, that's gray zone warfare.
Yeah, which is, I mean, I was going to ask a question, how close to reality are we with this? And you're like, this right here is a depiction of reality that we're facing with today. So, I mean, in your opinion, how do we fix that? Like, how do we fix the fact that we're so dependent on China?
Well, we should do our own rare earth element mines. It would take it's kind of analogous to going to the moon. We set our mind to it. We went to the moon. And
Yeah,
the end state, what did that really get us other than a flag on the moon? I mean,
yeah,
we've got, Velcro or things like that, but at the end of
yeah.
the day, the same thing needs to happen, just like we did for vaccines or for national security reasons, that we should be doing our own rare earth elements. We have them here. It's just not profitable to mine them.
And is that because of the environmental issues that
Yeah,
that
because it is
we're
super
on? Yeah,
messy. It's just a
yeah,
real pain to get out of the ground.
yeah, yeah. What what's your favorite aspect of this one? I mean, you've every book you write is so great, and I know people are probably thinking I'm fawning over you, but honestly, the, the Pike Logan series is great, Brad. I mean, I don't know how else to say that except to say that our audience needs to pick this book up. Number one, but what did you specifically like about this one?
Well, I like the juxtaposition that so China's got these guys they've hired to do their gray zone warfare to get rid of this billionaire who's going to do the mine, but they
Yeah,
don't. China doesn't realize these guys have their own agenda. And sometimes when we do, covert operations, we think that guy's going to do our bidding, and he's got something else in his mind. And you get second and third order effects that you never realized. So by the end of the book, not only is the United States trying to stop these guys, but so is China. Like, holy moly, those guys are doing something we didn't expect them to do. And this could
yeah.
cause an actual shooting war, which we do not want. We're leaving the gray zone here because we paid these guys to do something, and they've taken our money and are doing something completely different.
Yeah, that was a pretty big twist. I think that element in the book for me um, is hiring those Sikhs to go ahead and do this mission, and then they have their own mission inside the mission, right?
Right.
And it really did make me wonder. Uh, oh, wow. Okay, so how often does that happen? That we operate in the gray zone, and there's a secondary mission set that's involved.
Well, it happens. You have to be aware of it every time you hire somebody.
Yeah.
Every time you get a source, I mean, I've seen so many cables, you do a source debrief, and it's almost a rote line that says source may have been trying to influence as well as inform because he's got an agenda. You've got to
Yeah.
always be on guard. Is this guy telling me this because it's a truth, or is this guy telling me this because he's got some agenda? He wants me to do something.
Yeah.
So that's on the small end. Large end, I mean, you always have to be aware of second and third order effects, and sometimes we aren't. I mean, in Afghanistan, we helped the Mujahideen kick Russia out. Yay, yay, we won. Well,
Yeah.
what happened there? Mujahideen took it to us. So, I mean,
Yeah.
because we had done all that work with them, and we didn't look at the second and third order effects of, okay, now that we've got Afghanistan, Russia's out of Afghanistan, maybe it would behoove us to stabilize Afghanistan instead of just calling it victory and leaving. And we called it victory and left. Taliban came to power, and the rest is history.
Wow. Yeah. That is, I mean, you've got so many, I gotta let the audience know about all your books. Well, I'm not gonna let them know about all your books, but I mean, you've got so many. How many best-selling books do you have now?
That's book 19, I think.
This is book 19. Yeah. I will say that the last book, and we talked about this last book, Dead Man's Hand, and that really involved Russia,
Yeah,
if I recall correctly, and everything that was going on with Russia at the time that I guess is still kind of going on now.
yeah.
Um, Dead Man's Hand is so fascinating to me too, and how you build off of current events. To me, this is very current. You release a novel that seems like it's almost an insider look into what is going on presently, and that's really into the gray zone. What I thought, I mean, it just Brad, somehow you do it. Sometimes, your
Appreciate
timing
it.
is just perfect.
But
So, yeah, how do people find the book? Where can they get it? When is it released?
yeah, it comes out April 22nd is the official release date. And you can
Okay.
find it, as they say, wherever great books are sold. I mean,
Yeah.
it'll be Barnes& Noble, Amazon, anywhere that you can find a book, you'll find that. They can go to my website at bradtaylorbooks.com. There's an excerpt of the book on the page. There's actually an excerpt of all my books on the website, so they can get a flavor for what they're getting into before they buy it.
Yeah.
That's where it
And
is.
can they follow you on social media? Do you ever
Yeah.
come to
So,
current events, comments on current
yeah, I've
events?
got some blogs on the website as well
Okay.
that are all national security related, not book related.
Yeah.
But at Brad Taylor Books on Instagram, Brad Taylor Books on Twitter, and Brad Taylor Books on Facebook.
Yeah. Nice. That is so great. Um, it's kind of going off cuff before we close this out, but and you can say you're not going to make any comment, but I'm just going to throw this question out there. Current administration, seeing everything that's going on between the tariffs and just economics and things that are going on in the government and just kind of Doge and all this that's going on, is there going to be a novel that describes what's going on in this present current event?
No,
No.
I stay away from politics. I mean, I don't like when I read politics, whether it's left or right, and I'm
Yeah.
reading a book and it's clearly got an agenda, whether it's left or right. I don't like
Yeah.
that. I read for enjoyment. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the 19th book. I've had a presidential administration throughout all of them, and not once have I said what party that presidential administration is in.
Yeah.
I just kind of stay away from that.
Yeah, yeah. Which and I teed that question up because you and I have talked about that before, and I think that's one of the other things that I truly appreciate about your books is I really don't know what the administration is.
Yeah.
I do know that they're supportive about making sure America stays America, but I think that makes you a little bit different than some other people who write books. You can kind of clearly see an agenda.
Yeah, I really want to stay away from that. And it's not, and that's because I'm a reader before I'm a writer. I mean, if I'm
Yeah,
reading a book and it's all of a sudden it's just, you're getting hit over the head on something,
yeah.
it's just like, oh, really? Come on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going to encourage our audience to pick this book up. Like Brad says, comes out April 22nd, Into the Gray Zone, book number 19. And then you've got some novellas that you have out there.
Yeah.
Visit the website. Guys, I can't express enough how much I love having Brad on the show because his content is so relevant. When you pick up and you start reading the first page, it is really hard for me to put your books down, Brad.
I
So
appreciate it.
yeah, congratulations. We've had some great authors on the show, and you are one of my favorites for sure. So, yeah, appreciate it. And everybody be sure you check out Brad Taylor.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Brad.
Thank you for having me.
Yep.